Hello, hello, and welcome. I am your host, LaToya J.R. Borders of this Happily Ever After Summit. I'm so excited because you're learning how to co-create a marriage filled with love, intimacy, and adventure. Today, we have a really excellent expert. I'm going to have her introduce herself and let you know what it is that she does and how she does it.
Hi, my name is Aleasa, and I am an internationally certified emotional intelligence coach. I've been coaching for about 7 years now. So some of the areas that I actually coach on, of course, include relationships, but also in relationships, we have conflict. So I do coach on conflict strategies as well as diversity and inclusion strategies.
I love it. I love it. I'm all about strategy. So the very first question I have for you is, what is emotional intelligence?
So we have different types of intelligence. People are very familiar with your IQ, right? And your IQ is really all about your ability to learn is what your IQ is. And your IQ never changes. So we're all born with a set ability to learn things. Your EQ, on the other hand, is something that can change. And with your EQ, it's about self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, motivation, and empathy. So these are the tools that we use to be able to interact with others and to be able to have relationships with others. Even the person that you're standing next to in a grocery store, you have a relationship with them because you're literally standing next to them and you instantly build a relationship, whether that relationship is verbal or nonverbal. Your body language speaks, so does theirs. Same thing with the cashier at the store. So when you understand how to connect with your own self from a self-awareness perspective, things like impulse control, how you speak to people, how you communicate with others, how you project what you have to say so that people can hear it. All those things fall under the realm of emotional intelligence. And people who have a higher rate of emotional intelligence are people who develop relationships better, but they're also people who are able to increase their wealth better. So it really would behoove everyone to start working on their emotional intelligence, because this is a way that we can find ourselves being very successful. If you've ever seen somebody who's really, really smart, but they have relationship skills that really need some assistance. They need help with those, basic communication with people. And a lot of that really has to do with emotional intelligence and being aware of where you are in the moment and how you take those emotional intelligence skills to be able to develop rapport with others.
I love that. I think I have a high emotional intelligence. Just by the way you described it, I think that I do. I never thought that I did. And I didn't know that your IQ couldn't go up. That's interesting too.
It's a number. I mean, and the thing is, you can adapt in different ways to, you can learn, a lot of different things, but your capacity for learning is what your personal capacity is.
What it is. Okay, so my next question is, what does relationship readiness mean to you?
Oh, relationship readiness. We get ready for so many things. We get ready for work in the morning. I got ready for this interview today. We get ready for job interviews. Think about how you dress up for that job interview. You go out and buy that $250, $300 suit for that job interview so you can look really good for that job interview because you're preparing for the job interview so that you can get the job and do the job and be successful at the job. Well, we tend to, as people, get ready for everything but relationships. We jump into them feet first and then wonder why we come out with our feet in our mouth. So relationship readiness is really, really important for each and every one of us, because a lot of times when we have poor relationships that we get into, we blame the other person. And sometimes the other person's not the greatest person for us. They probably are a great person for somebody else. But when you start finding yourself in those relationship cycles that just kind of keep happening over and over, you hear people, I can't find a good man. I can't find a good woman. Well, the question I ask is, when you think you're a good man or you think you're a good woman, then why? What makes you a good man? What makes you a good woman? And what makes you ready? And, your baggage that you've had from past relationships, every relationship counts, because your first relationship is that which you share with your family. And it sets the tone for every other relationship you have. Everything from your conflict style, your resolution style, the way that you parent, you manage, you take care of your hygiene, all those things come from your primary relationship. And you have to be ready to be able to take those primary skills and apply them to a relationship with someone else that didn't grow up in the same way that you did. So unless you're ready to do that and you're able to build that bridge and create, something where that gap is between you and that other person, then that makes you sit in a state of not being ready. And then you end up having problems in your relationship as you try to figure it out.
That makes so much sense. Another relationship coach, his name is Hassani. I can't remember his last name. I think it's like Pitford or something like that. But love that he speaks to this. He says, like, your family that you grew up with has its own culture. And the family of that person that you would have their own culture. Say they from, I don't know, they from China and you from America. You got to learn how to speak each other's language.
Right.
You like you said, you have different conflicts. You do have different ways of communicating with one another. So you come from two different ones, and now you got to merge that and kind of create your own little mini culture in your relationship. That could be very difficult. And if you don't have that readiness, if you don't prepare yourself before you go into that, you can be setting yourself up for failure every single time.
Absolutely. And it's just very, very important because your family of origin and another person's family of origin, like you said, they're completely different. And you try to bridge those two cultures together without having some sort of preparation plan, not just for the relationship, but for yourself. And you wonder why these nuclear explosions of love happen, you know, and it's just, it's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. I love to relate this to marriage because a lot of people think like, oh, I'll just go to one session and that'll be fine right before we get married. But you're spending 3, 6, sometimes a whole year, 3, 6 months, or sometimes a whole year to get married for that wedding day. Right. But you're only spending one session for your actual marriage. It's going to be for the rest of your life. Like, it's super important that we kind of focus more on how to get ourselves and our partner ready for this like long journey we're having.
And that's exactly right. It's a journey. You know, people think that marriage is a destination. It's not. You know, you get ready, you plan a honeymoon, you get your dress, you get the tuxedos and the limousines and all this stuff for this wonderful day. And that's your destination. No, that's actually the beginning of your journey. Because I like to think of it sometimes, I like to use a lot of analogies. And you think about it as a meal. The appetizer was really great. When it's time for you to have that meal, how are you going to savor the flavor and make it last? That matters.
I love that. I love that analogy. Okay, so my next question is, how do couples keep the love strong in their marriage? I get this a lot. Like, how do I stay in love and keep that connection with my man?
You know, people ask me that. A lot of times people get very bored in relationships. And you know, when I ask them, what would you tell your kids? What would you tell your kids if they got bored? Right? We can give all this advice to everybody else. I'm not asking what you tell your friends, because what you tell your friends is definitely not always what you're going to tell yourself. But what would you tell your children? These people that you love and you've created and who come from you, what would you tell them to do when they're bored? You would tell them to be creative. You would tell them to find another way. You would tell them that the love that they have is worth finding new ways to show to the other person. But it goes back to your statement earlier about speaking the language. You know, I mean, everybody knows about the 5 love languages. I love that. But it's really important to understand your partner's love language. What matters to your person? And then the other part is that you have to stay consistent with being new. Be consistent with being new. Date your mate. I hear that all the time. It sounds so stale. It sounds this, it sounds so that. Yeah, but we've got work and we've got this and we've got that. Well, what happens when you don't have your mate and all you have is work? You've got to stay new. You've got to stay fresh. And the way that you stay in love with somebody is you find new ways to respect that person. Because I'll tell you, you can't love somebody that you don't respect.
Very, very true.
So you find new ways and you make vows to outdo each other in the happiness area. A lot of times I want to be happy. I need to be happy. Well, if you decided to create this co-creative relationship and you're cohabitating and you're in this with this person, you've created a covenant with this person, you become one. So there is no I in team, right? So, I mean, that sounds also cliched, but if I want to be happy, my happiness is based on making sure that my partner is also happy because we're one. If I got bored, I'd find something new for us to do. So why aren't you finding new things for you and your partner to do? Because if it's that important to you and you've made that commitment, you've got to do that. You have to be able to keep the love strong. But it's also about respect. Respect is huge in keeping love strong between people. We talk a lot about, you know, men really need to have respect. Well, women need to have it too. And if you constantly go from the idea of respect in everything you do with that other person, how great is that going to be to me as a woman if my man said it respects me enough to do this and to do that, and I'm constantly feeling respected, because you're going to be disrespected in the workplace, disrespected in the community, disrespected sometimes even in your church. You're going to be disrespected all over. But if I come home and I'm constantly shown the utmost amount of respect by that person who has agreed to protect and cover and love me, that love is going to be real strong.
I love that you say that. And also when you say that, the first thing that pops into my mind is consideration. I feel like after you get married or you've been in a relationship for a while, the consideration kind of goes out the door. You're more considerate and kind to maybe the person that you see at the grocery store than you are to your mate. You like, let me hold the door open for you, or have a good day. You forget those pleasantries between you and your spouse. So I love that. So my last and final question is, how important is self-love in a marriage?
I don't know how you can have a successful marriage without self-love, because again, it goes back to when you get married, you commit yourself to becoming one. How can you love half of yourself?
Wow.
How is that possible? If you only love half of yourself, what is it about the other half that makes you not love that other half? So self-love is very, very important. Your mate has to love themselves as much as they love you, and vice versa, because you will always end up in a half-loving relationship if you don't love yourself. And in order for you to be loved, you got to be lovable, and you got to love you. Let me tell you something. I love me some Ms. Word. I love me some me, and not in a conceited kind of way, but in a way where I have had this journey of life that has taken me places sometimes that have been really difficult, and been through some relationship challenges. And I'm in a very happy place from a relationship perspective right now. But I love me. And when, I'm a person who went through some stuff, but I had to take a hiatus and say, what is it about you that keeps attracting people that you can't love and respect enough for them to love and respect you? So I had to ask myself those questions and become ready for me. Because when you make it about you and not about, oh, well, so-and-so did this to me and so-and-so did it. Well, maybe they did. Maybe they really did. Maybe they were horrible in that relationship because two of you brought out the worst in each other. Because I'm a strong believer in even the worst person is good for somebody else. They might not be good for you, but they're good for somebody else. But maybe they did. Maybe they did all those things. But what is it about you that you're going to do to be different and to love yourself different so that you attract a different type of love? Because in order for love to be sustainable, you have to be able to love yourself enough to sustain that. And if you don't, what happens to any relationship that you have with anyone? You'll continue repeating the same relationship cycles over and over and over again. And then we have up days and down days, the hills and the valleys of life. You've got to have a crisis plan for your love for yourself and a crisis plan for your love for your relationship. You must have a crisis plan, because I guarantee you the world will be against you when you least expect it. And if you are not ready for that, think about it. What do we do in this country? We prepare for any crisis, right? If we have any attacks of the enemy, whether a person's spiritual based or not spiritual based, what do? You prepare for attacks of the enemy. You're in school. Schools now even have lockdown for kids. They prepare for attacks of the enemy, right? So everything that we do that is good and worthwhile is susceptible to attack. Love and marriage, one of the most susceptible things that you could ever imagine to attack. So get your crisis plan ready. And it starts with self-love.
I love that. Having a crisis plan, that is, I wrote that down while you was talking. I'm like, I don't call it a crisis plan, but that's like perfect. And having that self-love, me and my husband, we don't believe in like the 50-50 thing. I want 100%. I don't really want half. That's felon. In any world, in any school, that's felon. I don't want 50%. And I found out after I got married that I needed to love me more. unconditionally loving myself. So having that relationship with God is important for me. The spirit for somebody else, whatever that thing is that grounds
Right.
you, having that. And then I was like, I gotta have a relationship with myself. I gotta be able to have time to myself and just be in my own presence and be okay with that. For a long time, I was not okay with just being by myself. And you have to have that within your marriage. Because I can't give anything to you if I ain't got nothing. I need to fill my cup up first.
One of my favorite things that I say, somebody told me a long time ago, and she talked about a scripture, talked about, oh, everybody's always talking about my cup runneth over, and you're supposed to give away and give this and give that. She said, what's in the cup is for you. It's the spillover that belongs to everyone else, right? But if your cup is empty, you don't even have spillover. So how can you give your mate the spillover if your cup is empty? That makes no sense. So you just can't do it.
You can't.
So you have to make sure that your cup is full. And when your cup is full, you'd be so happy to let that spill over, just go down the person that you love. You'd be just spilling over every day. I mean, seriously, I spill over all the time. He knows.
In a good way. In a great
that's
way.
Right. That's right. He knows. That's right.
Okay, so this interview was super great, and I know that you have a free gift for our audience. Can you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, so after I went through some challenges of my own, and I really went through a period of self-discovery, and I committed myself to a 2-year period at one time with no dating at all. 2 years. And let me just tell you, the first 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm crazy, right? But in that time period, I said, I am this EI coach. In order for me to be the best coach that I can be, I have to increase my own emotional intelligence about myself. So during that period, I wrote a book. It's a manual, actually. It's a relationship manual. And it's called Get Right for Love, the Muscle Guide to Relationship Readiness. When you build muscle memory, you build muscle for the gym, build your muscle for your relationship. Build your muscle. So what I'm doing is I'm giving away autographed copy of the book. And it talks about, your crisis management plan and those sorts of things, because we need them. We're not living in a world by ourselves in a silo once we get to the relationship, even though we think we are the first do that honeymoon period. But I think it's important for people to understand why they need to get ready for love and get right for love.
Yes. I'm opting in. Y'all should definitely opt in too, so you can get your copy signed by this amazing lady. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you guys so much for coming. Much love.
All right.